Hey guys, before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to Vivian Wang. She was very gracious in allowing me to use her photo of Todd Gummerman for the cover photo of this episode. You can find her on Instagram at Lithophyte. That's LITHOPHYTE. Also Instagram.com/Lithophyte. The link will be in the show notes. Thank you. You're listening to Every Last Drop podcast. Join me, Danny, Nick, and sometimes Luke as we explore the relationship between philosophy and art. If you enjoyed today's show and want to contribute to what we're doing, visit everylastdroppodcast.com/contribute. We greatly appreciate your support. Enjoy the show. Welcome to another edition of Every Last Drop podcast. That's right. We are in your pocket everywhere you go.
That's right. Everywhere you go.
Yep. And if you keep your phone in your back pocket, we're in your butt. Or maybe on it.
Don't put your phone in your back pocket, please, for our sake.
Yeah.
And all your friends' sake when you accidentally butt dial them.
Yeah. That's right.
We got a very special guest today.
Yeah? Who's that?
Todd Gummerman.
Yeah. All right. So if you're a Mutemath fan and you stumbled across this, welcome to the show.
This is for you.
This is for you. That includes
And
that includes me.
Yeah, shout out to Winnebago Man.
Yeah. Jack Rebney. That was perfect. Yeah, really though, that does include me because I am a huge Mutemath fan.
Dude, you've loved Mutemath
for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So this is a really special interview. I think I did pretty good, like kind of just keeping my cool.
Hold yourself together.
Yeah, because a few years ago I would have been probably way starstruck by this, but now I'm a little bit. I'm mature enough to kind of handle it and see the humanness and just the relatability and how we're kind of talking on a friend to friend basis. So that's how I see it nowadays. So yeah, so Todd is a member of Mutemath. If you don't know who this is, Mutemath, if you don't know who they are,
check them out.
Yeah, go look it up.
Pause this podcast.
Yeah,
check them out.
Give you permission to pause this and just go listen to all the Mutemath you can possibly consume, which is 4 albums and 1 EP. That is all you can consume because that's all there is. And they're all very different from each other. They're a very eclectic band, diverse styles of music, diverse instrumentation, a killer out of this world drummer who just blows my mind every time I hear him. I've seen him live 3 times. It gets better every time. Todd's not a founding member of Mutemath. He wasn't there when the band started. The original guitar player quit around right before the making of their 3rd album when they were going to record it. He quit. The 3 members made it by themselves, which you'll hear all about that in detail in the interview. We go pretty in-depth with that. So Todd joined kind of shortly after that time. He was a part of the 4th album. He is multi-instrumentalist in the band. He plays guitars, he plays keyboards and synths and synth bass and whatever they need him to. So it's honestly, it's an honor. It's an honor to have a guy like this on our show.
Sure is.
For him to grace this show with his time and his contributions. So yeah, the interview speaks for itself, right?
Yes, it does.
So, guys, without further ado, we're gonna jump right into this guy and let you hear it in all of its glory.
Enjoy.
I know I did.
Me too.
Do you want to keep up with all of the cool stuff that's happening on Every Last Drop? Head on over to everylastdroppodcast.com to find out about everything we do, from a feed of our most current episodes, blog posts, ways you can get in touch with us, and an opportunity to join our email list so you can get up-to-date information about our latest releases. Haven't signed up yet? What are you waiting for? Go.
Hello.
All right.
Hello.
Can you see us, Todd?
Yeah, what's up, man?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Sweet. Oh, awesome. Right on. Thanks, man. What's going on? How you doing today?
I'm great. I guess I have a halo of lights.
Perfect,
yeah.
Like I planned it.
You've reached your ultimate form.
Yeah. I'm doing great, man. I'm just chilling in my studio. It's a decent day. It's a little drizzly, but it's been beautiful here in Nashville.
Nashville. Now, you're not an, what's the term, Nashvillian? Is that what you call a person from Nashville?
I don't think I technically am. I don't know. I've lived here a year, so maybe I need to start adopting that.
But you're not a Nashville native, though.
No, I grew up in Bloomington, Illinois.
Oh, really? Illinois?
Boy. Yeah.
Right on.
Cool.
Nice. I was born in Chicago, but I didn't grow up in Illinois, so.
Yeah, I thought I remembered that. I used to go up there and play soccer a bunch.
Yeah.
And go to Cubs games, and of course, as one does when you're close to Chicago.
Absolutely.
Right on. Are you still a Cubs fan to this day?
I don't really follow baseball.
Not a baseball guy.
If something's on, if baseball's on, I'll look for the Cubs, but I became obsessed with soccer, so it kind of pushed out all the other sports interests in my life.
Right on. Sounds good.
But
yeah.
they're doing well. I hear they're doing well.
That's what I hear too. They're in the playoffs and they're good, which
might be the year, right?
It's kind of weird to think the Cubs are good, but it's
Actually,
happening.
Darren was just explaining to me that Back to the Future Biff was based off of Trump.
That's true.
And
that's true.
In that scenario was when the Cubs were going to win. So there's this weird Back to the Future thing happening again.
Yeah, and part 2. Oh man, I love Back to the Future. It's one of my all-time favorites. But yeah, part 2, you've got Biff Tannen's Pleasure Paradise or whatever. And, and the Cubs winning the World Series. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, man. All right, so all we really want to talk about is just you and your artistic ways and kind of why you do what you do, how it happened. So we'll kind of start from the beginning, and then we'll work our way up. So
great.
This is my buddy Nick.
How you doing, Todd?
He's also my co-host.
Hi, Nick.
Nice to meet you, man. I love your music.
I can see your shoulder, but that's probably good enough. It's not a big deal. I just thought you might want to know.
Okay.
It's all good though.
Yeah, Danny's the one that got me into you guys' music, and I greatly enjoy it. So I'm a big fan.
Oh, nice. Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good length of bandom going.
Yeah.
Over a decade's pretty solid.
It is, especially nowadays, to keep a band together that long. So
yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of, like I said, I want to kind of start from the beginning. So I'm just curious, can you talk a little bit about how you got started in music? Like, how old were you, and like just kind of what got you going into music? What attracted you to it? Like, how did that start for you?
Certainly, man. There's definitely big phases. In the first phase, how I got into music was because my parents stuck me on violin lessons when I was 2.
Wow.
So it wasn't really a choice. I don't think it was a choice at that point.
I haven't seen a 2-year-old playing violin before.
I don't remember if it was a choice. At that age, from my understanding, they don't even start you on a violin. I remember having like a little Cracker Jack box that you hold on your shoulder, and then you have a stick to kind of get used to the motion. I have a vague recollection of that happening. And then, they have tiny violins. They have like quarter size or eighth size violins somehow.
And that's where the joke comes from, like, oh, I'll play you a song on the tiny violin or whatever.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. So I took classical from, I guess, 2 all the way through high school. And I started piano at 3 as well. They stuck me on piano at 3.
Wow.
Wow.
And so it wasn't really a choice. My dad sung barbershoppers since before I was born. He just hit like his 50-year membership in his barbershop chorus.
Good Lord.
And
wow.
at that point, you get to stop paying your dues. They figure if you've been alive and singing that long, they cut you some slack.
50 years. All right, we'll give you a break after 50 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, classical for a long time, and I really liked that. I got a little burnout on it by the time I hit teenage years and started hearing, rock and other pop and stuff like that.
Right.
So it was really just a matter of being exposed to new genres that got my blood going. I played a lot in church, so that was sort of a gateway to other styles. And then once I started hearing like jazz and rock on the radio, I honestly just started trying to pick stuff out on the piano and play along to stuff, pick out melodies. I realized somewhere around like early high school that I was really focused on bass lines. I don't know if I was trying to. I just started hearing bass lines in music with whether I wanted to or not. Like when they're at a restaurant and I'm just following the bass line. And
like your mind just latched onto it for whatever reason.
Yeah, I was like, crap. Like, is this going to be forever? Like, am I stuck? Is my brain stuck in bass mode? But I think it was just a curiosity of wanting to know how chord structures worked. Like, why does this song work? And obviously there's so much centered around the bass and the chord structure. Like, it explains so much. Because the melody, everyone picks out the melody. That's a no-brainer.
Right. Music has... The melody is the most noticeable thing, but music has two other parts. There's rhythm and harmony. Yeah.
It doesn't work without some kind of root. So I think I was just trying to connect those two. But it was great. I mean, it was a really healthy thing to get hooked on. So yeah, I was a keys guy and violin, but I was more naturally better at keys. Really my whole life. Guitar I didn't get into until I started playing acoustic in like youth group, and electric I didn't get into until really more till like I was 18 or 19, 20.
Adult years.
Yeah. And, dabbled in bass and drums in the youth group setting as well. But
right on.
I guess that's the brief history.
So you talked about how you got a little bit bored of the classical and you started hearing some more of like the rock genres and the pop. So who are some of those early inspirations that really really inspired you early on to get out of classical and like really kind of take ownership of playing your own music, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there were some big ones. I would say the ones that jump out were my brother showed me the Weezer Blue album when I was maybe 15. And that, to me, that was pretty mind-blowing. Just the genre. I hadn't really been exposed to that kind of grungy rock ever.
Yeah. And
how, like...
Especially coming from classical, there's, like, no overlap.
Yeah. It was pretty mind-blowing to me, just between the guitar solos and how simple the melodies seemed, but then like once you broke it down, it was pretty brilliant, like some of that stuff. Like power chords for the whole song, it's just so simple but so smart to be pulling that stuff off. That was huge. I remember it was all just friends handing me the best stuff. Queen, I got a Queen best of album in high school that just could not believe that stuff. Jeff Buckley, the Grace album, of course, friends showing me Radiohead, OK Computer.
But you're not the first person that's mentioned that record as being like this mind blowing trip of.
Yeah, all that stuff, man. I just could not believe it, and it wasn't a total 180. Like there was some good stuff in Christian music, which is what I was kind of forced to be boxed into until I was old enough to like.
I'm with you on that.
Old enough to sneak some secular records.
Right, exactly.
So the good DC Talk and Audio Adrenaline and some more obscure ones like Plank Eye or Bleach, stuff like that. There was some good Christian stuff that was pushing boundaries for sure. But
no doubt about it.
Compared to the secular list that I just mentioned, it was just, I couldn't believe it. Rage, like my brain couldn't handle Rage Against the Machine. I did like.
Yeah, that's some genre bending stuff.
It made me so worked up and like angry, and I had nothing to be angry about. I had the easiest upbringing, so I just wanted that energy to turn to something. I would usually just drive around and just crank it and like feel like I was being the biggest rebel by just screaming the F word. F you, won't do what you tell me, like over and over again. So yeah, that's the short list. But the energy of some of those groups was insane.
So okay, right on. So some of the things what are some of the things that were in common between them that really stuck out to you? Was it how they were? Did you think of them as all like being really innovative and like they were all like just really pushing the envelope for their time, and that's what drew you to them the most? Or was it just the fact that it was new because you were kind of in a bubble for a long time with musically?
Yeah, it was definitely a combination of the two. I mean, but not just new. I mean, you would hear stuff on the radio that I would be pretty dismissive of, just the general pop world in those days.
Right.
I mean, not that there aren't some good pop songs from the 90s, but it was pretty... it was pretty spotty back then, I thought, and yeah, it was new, and I didn't have any frame of reference to compare it to, Led Zeppelin. I had no like backwards catalog to compare it to. So for me, even if they were referencing old groups that were amazing or ripping them off or like taking it to the level, I had no way to know that. So to me, it was all just genius moves. Like, how are these guys thinking of this creativity and way to do music? So it was just like an education, which reminds me, Lauryn Hill, Miseducation. That was one of my favorite records, still is to this day. That record's ridiculous. I played that so much in high school. And Wallflowers was a big one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just, it seemed like such a creative, different way to approach music. And of course, like the lyrical content was totally new to me and like
caught you
totally
off guard.
Darker, like more darker side of my brain that I hadn't ever really gone to. Lyrics have always taken a back seat though, honestly, to music for me.
That's not what your ear hears first.
Even even in my own bands, even in Mutemath, I don't know all the lyrics. I know my BGV lyrics, my background vocals, but I don't even know all of our lyrics. My brain has always been about chords and melody and counter melodies and that stuff.
I think I can relate to that. Yeah.
So I've definitely made arguments to friends about, the lyrics don't even matter half the time. Like at least in these type of genres, it's more about the energy. Yeah. Certainly you got to sell the song, but like,
and the hook.
I like to joke about like, yeah, exactly. Like Another One Bites the Dust. It's all about that groove. I mean, Another One Bites the Dust is great, but then the verses, like you have no idea what he's saying in the verses. They're like,
right.
It's like, I have no idea what he's saying.
Yeah, it's like the melody of what he's singing is what you remember, not necessarily like the words that he's saying.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I've always been more
I'm
about
with you on that.
the color that they're painting this palette, and that's what I'm buying into.
For sure.
Not the lyrics don't matter. It's just always taking a second seat, back seat to that.
Totally. So let's move forward just a little bit now. So we talked about your inspirations and the early beginnings for you. How about some of those early musical projects that you started getting involved in? How did that go, and like what made you want to be a part of them? What was that desire that made you want to get into that?
Like as far as sort of the first bands I was in?
Yeah. Like some of the early bands that you were in, whether that's like high school or even earlier if you did, or just like.
Yeah, there was a couple high school experimentations, but it was is that a word? Experiments that they didn't really go far. I just did a couple talent show things. I was pretty timid of anything like that. I was just used to like the worship setting,
right?
And that was very comfortable, and like your chords. And it's all pretty templated out.
Yeah.
We can.
You got the sheet in front. Yeah, we can relate to that because we've done it.
Yeah.
You got the sheet in front of you. You just follow along.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But diving into like, like I backed up my school choir for a couple like gospel songs, and that like really stretched my brain, and like a couple talent show things with a Jimi Hendrix thing or something like that.
You set your guitar on fire.
It started getting me a little prepared, but what really did it was just a crash course after high school. This worship band called the Terry Kelly Band just offered me a full-time job. I was going to go to college and play music, and they offered me a full-time gig. So I was like, well, I could either go learn or I could just go do.
That ain't half bad after high school.
Yeah, and it was like a salary position. It was crazy. So that's what really got and Terry, the lead guy, was a really good teacher musically, as far as like the roles of the instruments, and I learned a lot from him, and being in that scenario of just not just slamming away on chords, but picking one or two notes, picking a counter melody, and complementing the bass, all that kind of stuff. Excuse me. But so that got me on a good path. And then my solo stuff, I started towards the tail end of that. And that was just really just a crash course in making music all on my own. Realized I was decent enough to be able to play most of the instruments. So that stuff's online. It's just called Gummerman. It was me just playing everything and writing and getting into electric guitar just because I heard it in my head. Yeah. That wasn't even very good at electric back then, but I would have like a solid rhythm section, a solid structure, and be like, man, this sure could use some electric. I guess I'll just sit down and
plug away at it.
Yeah, hack away until I figure out some cool lines. So it was a lot of just trial and error as far as learning the electric goes. And the solo stuff was really healthy for me. It got me a lot of confidence, which I didn't have much confidence in singing lead vocal in a band. And it was kind of terrifying. Yeah. But I just forced myself to do shows. And I learned a lot. Definitely made me a better singer and a better musician. So that, and I did a few local bands after that, and everything's just been leading up to what I'm doing now. In a strange way, how I'm multi-instrumentalist and singing, and everything that I've worked on has been just totally utilized in this band, which is very gratifying,
Totally. It's like a culmination of all those things.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, sometimes you only end up using like a percentage of, what you learned in school, or like a percentage of your your passion might be 50-50 of some hobby and your job. But I've just kind of lucked out to having the whole thing, you know, everything that I've worked on in my life is being used. Maybe instead of sports, I don't get paid for sports.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've pretty much been a multi-instrumentalist from like the very beginning, right?
Totally. Yeah. Violin, piano, and I guess vocalist, but not in the lead vocal sense, but just, you know, you're always singing in church. And I grew up in a boy choir too. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, nice. Nice. Man, you've had a lot of experiences then.
Yeah, that was great for harmony and locking in. Like, that was huge because there's no music. You're just, well, there might have been a piano, but it's a lot of a cappella just.
Yeah, that's what holds the rhythm down is everybody singing together. Yeah.
So theory-wise, between like the violin and piano and group singing, like I had such a solid foundation of theory and how harmony and melody work together. I'm well equipped to be in a band.
Oh, no doubt. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you about like how you're this versatile multi-instrumentalist now, and so what made you want to pick up that next instrument and just keep going? But we've already kind of established the fact that like you kind of like that's how it always was for you since the beginning, is like always having more than one instrument. And like you even said in the beginning, like your parents started you with the violin and then the piano shortly after. So like you weren't even deciding, like it was just kind of put into your lap in a way.
Yeah. So. And passion's a big deal, you know, like I think jumping around was a big help because it's so easy to get burned out. Like if I only did piano like over and over, you get burned out. I mean, unless you're just a savant and you are in love with it. Jumping around and following passions.
Yeah.
That was a big outlet of just like, I'm going to go to the church and like crush the drums for an hour because I can. And like, I just listen to some Rage, you know?
Yeah. And I got some energy that needs to just get out. Yeah.
So, you know, the following the passions that's a big deal. I mean, that's not any new nugget of wisdom, but it was helpful in just putting that energy into something useful, you know, that you want to learn something new. I mean, I wanted to learn electric because of all those bands I was listening to.
And it kind of keeps you fresh, you know, the instrument.
That exactly.
Strong in,
Hey, I actually can't hear him that well. I don't know if he can scoot a hair closer.
Can you scoot a hair closer, Nick?
Yeah.
I just don't know if he's been commenting and I haven't heard him.
No, he's been pretty quiet.
Yeah, just enjoying listening right now.
But. I've been talking a lot, sorry.
Yeah, no that's good because we want to hear from you.
No problem.
So, yeah, I was going to ask you about what you saw as like the value of having that multi-instrumentalist background and being able to play all those different instruments, multiple instruments. And I think you were kind of answering it as like, you know, it gives you, it keeps you sharp and it keeps you from getting too bored. And
yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah,
it's exciting to be able to jump around. Honestly, in the beginning, it was probably kind of a street cred thing in like church of just like, oh, the drummer left early for altar call. Like they don't have anyone playing drums. I'm going to go play drums. So like trying to make eye contact with the worship leader. Like, you want some drums?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, but it was probably just subconscious in playing in orchestras my whole life and hearing all those parts, you know, you can't help but just appreciate the different roles of an orchestra, of a composition. So to be able to take over that role, it's just exciting. Like bass is so much fun to play. You have so much power and the color of the song and like, you know, where you push the chords when you're on bass, not to mention just sonically, like it's so big. So yeah, it's just exciting to be able to jump around. And like you said, it keeps you fresh, you know?
Yeah. Why don't you take the
Yeah, sure. When did you decide that you were going to pursue music, as your career? Was it kind of right out of high school when you got the position in that band where you were like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life? Or was it, was it just kind of a natural thing that happened, or was it a conscious decision that you made at that point?
Well, obviously, knowing my background, it was a pretty obvious direction. The band that offered me a job was a huge shove in that direction.
Yeah.
When I was going to go to school, I was going to study music in college and play soccer. And there was still a part of me that was like, maybe I could still play soccer. I wasn't.
So by then your mind was already kind of turning towards that.
It was, I was
time.
realizing I probably needed to make a decision of where I was going to spend my time. Because I thought maybe I could try and pursue soccer past a collegiate level. But once the job offer came, and it was like, I don't think I'm getting called into the MLS tomorrow. Like, I might as well. It was kind of like music or soccer. Like, what are you going to do? And one of those passions offered me a job. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And it's probably going to last me a lot longer in my adulthood than soccer is.
Yeah. Your body will be able to last longer with it. That's for sure. So it's almost like, in a way, the music with that offer that came up to you, it's almost like it kind of chose you when you were trying to decide. In a way, right?
And it's an obvious product of everything that happened in my life. I mean, I got offered the job because I had some talent, and they needed what I had. Like, they were a 3-piece band, and they were like, sure, it'd be nice to have some keys. And they just saw me playing at church. Like, they came through. It was like a traveling Christian
Okay, now
band.
when you say they, you're referring to the people
that first
who
worship gig,
offered you, yeah.
They came through as a guest at our church, and I guess the home worship team played a couple songs, and then probably turned the service over to these new, like, the band passing through. So that was the only reason. I mean, I didn't go looking for a gig. They just saw me playing at church and was like,
sometimes it happens that way.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to have some keys. So it was a tough decision, though, to like forego college. I already had a deposit down. So it was a conversation with my parents of, what do you think about this? And the band was like, yeah, we're not gonna let you take the job if your parents are gonna be pissed. So they wanted their blessing, and so that's one thing that I haven't mentioned. That was a huge reason of where I am today, was because my parents always supported, always drove me to lessons, like even supported the transition from like classical to church music to letting me like dabble in the rock stuff. And like, even when it gets down to like college and thinking like, hey, what if I don't go to college, which is a huge no-no for so many parents, and instead just go play music. And they were so supportive, which I was a little surprised. I was a little worried. I was an 18-year-old, but they were like the best supportive unit. Always been my biggest supporters in all my bands.
Wow, that's great.
It certainly helps. Yeah.
Oh, it's a crucial difference when you have parents that are opposing the things that you're passionate about versus them encouraging you.
Just gives you an uneasy feeling when they're upset about.
Yeah, it might make my lyrics a little softer, a little less angsty, but
yeah.
Mental health wise, I'm in great shape.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it in the end. So let's take it now to what we're all kind of dying to hear about, and a lot of people who are going to listen are really wondering about, and that's when you jumped into Mutemath. So you came into Mutemath just after they completed Odd Soul, right?
Yes.
So you weren't
right as they released it.
So you weren't involved with making Odd Soul.
Nope, I was just practicing the tracks as they were finishing them.
Mm-hmm.
They had hit a good groove. Well, you know, Greg quit, and so they were like, well, let's just try the next record as the three of us. I mean, they're obviously very competent musicians, and they had hit a really good workflow, just the three of them, and so they wanted to try and make it happen. Roy's been playing guitar longer than he has bass.
Right.
So
rather than try to like launch this search for the replacement immediately, they opted for that.
Especially on getting a new guy for the writing process, like that's doubly hard, you know. So it made sense. I mean, when Darren first sat down with me, we were driving around. I can't remember. We were both on the road somewhere, and his first thing, I think, was he showed me like a rough mix of Blood Pressure and maybe something like Britannia. And was like, hey, like, check out some of our new record. What do you think? Do you think you'd be interested in playing guitar? And what was interesting in that position was I was not necessarily a Mutemath fan. I was friends with Darren, and we weren't tight, but we were like friendly to each other.
Yeah, so let's back up and talk about how this opportunity came up for you.
Oh, sure.
You're starting to get onto it, but let's make sure we
would like to know. It was very organic. I lived in Springfield, Missouri for 15 years, and Darren grew up right outside there.
Okay.
So we just, over the years, had mutual friends that Jeremy Larson, Chris Slater, some dudes that were good musicians in that scene. And so we would just see each other at shows. We ended up sitting in with Jeremy on several of his shows together.
You and Darren?
And then, me and Darren both sat in on some of those shows. And then he would come to a couple of my solo shows for the Gummerman stuff that I mentioned. So, and I had only seen one Mutemath show when it was in Springfield at a place called Remington's. And I remember being blown away, but especially just by Darren, which is a pretty common response to a first Mutemath show. I stared at him the whole time. Like, I couldn't believe. I remember thinking, like, this must have been like, this is what I imagine I would have felt watching John Bonham with Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
A drummer with so much power and dexterity.
Yeah. Who's just controlling the energy of the whole room.
Yeah, it was fascinating. So I'd only seen one show. I think I saw part of another show at South by Southwest as well. So when he approached me, I was kind of like, I needed some time. I was like, definitely going to think about it. Let me check out the catalog. I mean, my first answer was, this sounds great. The guitar gig sounds great, but I'm a keyboard player. So I don't know. Like, let me listen to your catalog and see if I think I can pull off that stuff. Like, it was a big stretch for me to say yes, because I wasn't just going to like commit to something that I didn't know how to do. I know
there's a bit of a leap of faith for you.
Yeah, there's a big fake it till you make it kind of thing in a lot of jobs, but that's a terrifying thing in just like a 4-piece band to like think that you're going to fake it till you make it.
Guitar.
Yeah.
So I just told him, like, give me a little time to listen to the catalog and see if it's within my grasp. And really what ended up happening was, I told him, let's give it a shot. And I just basically practiced every day for months, learning the catalog. My first job was to learn the Armistice Live DVD. And the funny thing about that was I worked on the parts for a long time, and I don't know why, but I was trying to learn it. I quickly realized that it helped a lot to like hit record and then listen back. which for anyone wanting to get better, like that's such a great tool and teacher. Because hopefully you're not. It's a lot harder to be forgiving when you're listening to playback as opposed to when you're playing along to something, or if you solo that track. Yeah. It's just like,
hey,
wow.
What comes back to you isn't lying to you; it's telling you the truth.
I'm so sloppy on that part or whatever. So I hit record, and I would try to do like complete takes of like the hour and a half DVD, like, without messing up, which is so ridiculous. So after like a week or two of trying to do like, you get like a half hour in and like mess up a part and just be like, oh,
gotta restart.
So after doing that, I was like, this is so stupid. I'm putting way too much like pressure on like doing a perfect hour and a half take. So I started just doing individual song takes. Because my thinking was they kept pushing back the audition date because they were still working on the record, and I was getting impatient, and I wanted to show them that things were going well. My thinking of recording it was, if I get a good take, I could send it to them, and that'll help like solidify my position. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like 100%. You got the job. I was going to have to audition. And so when I started doing individual songs, without any punch-ins, that was the best option. And I eventually got through the whole DVD doing that and had every song to where I thought it was pretty flawless. So I ended up sending it to Darren. I was like, hey, here's how it's going. Just, letting you know, like, I know the stuff. So I'm excited to play. And he listened to it, and he was like, man, this is really good. Do you mind if I show the guys? And I was like, yeah. I was like, that's fine. I mean, I figured that might happen. That's why, partially why I sent it.
Yeah.
And he brought it into Paul and Roy, and we're like, hey, Todd sent like practice tapes, basically the DVD panned left and what he does panned right. And they were like, man, that's ballsy, like a remote audition. And they were like, all right, let's hear it. And I think it went well. I think they're impressed that I picked out all the parts they never sent me anything separated. Like it was just
the final masters. Like I would listen to it. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just picking out the parts off the DVD, which is pretty tough on some songs, like the guitars just playing these, tricky walking lines, dissonant, like there
especially
was
on Armistice, the guitar isn't necessarily the primary instrument on every song.
Yeah, or
it's
like
not the main thing driving it on everyone.
Yeah, he jumps over to like the vibraphone at one point, and I'm like just rewinding and watching over and over, and like it was so helpful when the camera would pan to him for guitar or like vibes. I was like, oh, that's how he's playing it. Like, oh, he's in that register on the guitar. Like it was like it was something like just how a fan would learn the album. Wow. I didn't have, that was interesting that they didn't send me parts. So that was another piece of the trial, I guess.
Tall order.
Convincing. But it wasn't all like gravy after that. Like I still went in for like a 2-week boot camp, and we worked on a set that we would play. And the first show was supposed to be in Oklahoma City for this one-day festival where Flaming Lips was headlining. I think the last 3 was us, Primus, and Flaming Lips.
Was that the one where like severe weather?
Yeah, right.
Like rained it out or something.
Exactly. So we were on stage like a festival. You just throw and go. You throw your gear up and you start the show. And we had just got like everything turned on, and it's like, okay, let's hit it. And this crazy wind storm just crushes the stage. Gale force winds like blowing over like scaffolding. The big arch that the Flaming Lips have, they have this huge like half circle arch of lights. It blew it over,
Wow.
And it like
Wow.
crushed
Oklahoma.
a bunch of their gear, like their guitars and drums got crushed.
That's crazy.
And I'm like grabbing my pedal board and guitar, and I'm just like, this is supposed to be my first gig, but I'm getting the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Like we're just scampering to get indoors. So that was insane. So instead of that being my first show where like a bunch of my friends came out, my family, it ended up being in Japan at Summer Sonic for like 5,000 screaming Japanese fans. And it was like probably the most nervous show I've ever done. It was a new band and it was a new country, new set.
Everything was new.
I usually don't perspire a whole lot on stage, and I remember vividly that show. I had a dress shirt on and I had a sport coat on, and I sweat through. I looked like Paul or Darren. I sweat through the shirt and through the jacket, but it was just out of like nervousness.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't doing handstands or like playing the drums.
Yeah.
I was just nervous.
Yeah.
But I slowly got acclimated to that role in the band, and it ended up great.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Trial by fire a little bit in those early times.
Yeah, it's scary. Even when you practice for months, it's not a reality until you're in front of people.
Right.
And you can pull it off.
That's when the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, and that's why bands try out songs in front of crowds, new songs, and like you need that give and take of like a reaction.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let's fast forward then a few years into the future, where now you've got a few years under your belt in Mutemath. You've toured on Odd Soul, and it's time for a new record. So the last record you guys did was Vitals, not if we're not including the remixes that you just released.
Yeah.
So you did Vitals, and this time you're involved with the writing process, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Vitals. So to what extent were you involved with this one? What was kind of your role on the Vitals record?
It was an interesting transition. The role starting out was kind of just wild card. It's my favorite. One of my favorite Always Sunny in Philadelphia words to say. It was Charlie says wild card. It was an interesting thing because they had just written everything as a 3-piece. And so when we got in a room, and you take a demo that someone's kind of worked up and you just grab and start playing. It's not easy just to jam as a 4-piece anyway. Like you have to really know, you have to pick your spots and know like you're not step on each other's toes, and like everyone's very intelligent players in that camp. So honestly, in the beginning months, I was just doing a lot of like listening. I write a lot just by I like to write by listening to whatever is there and just listen for holes, like listen for gaps, just use my mind.
I like that approach.
Parts. So honestly, I was doing a lot of just listening to what the three of them were doing and picturing parts. And sometimes Roy would be on guitar, so I'd mess around with bass or synth bass or organ. We had a B3 going after that Odd Soul stuff. So I didn't have a specific role necessarily. It really was kind of multi-instrumentalist, just wild card. But it took a long time to really find a groove of what was going to be my main contribution. And I don't even think I can point to like one role. That record, if we break it down of what everything did, like it's all over the place. I mean, Roy played a lot of the guitars. Sometimes I'm doing guitar on the track, then I'm doing a bunch of synth, then I'm doing synth bass, then I'm doing, I tried to get some violin on the record. We got some on some tracks, but I don't know if any of them made the album. But
so you were jumping around then.
It was
a little bit of everything.
It was reverting just to what I was most naturally going to express myself on, which is keyboards. Like when I think about music or I have an idea, unless it's a huge open E chord where I can just slam it on the guitar, like I'm going to react and offer fresh ideas through a keyboard. Like that's how my brain works. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was sitting behind a keyboard a lot more of the time.
Yeah.
And we were being a lot more experimental with like trying to get cool background vocal, like Beach Boy kind of like stacked harmonies going, which there's certainly some of that in the back catalog, but we were trying to explore that on the early tracks. Mm-hmm. A lot of them didn't end up making the cut, but we were trying to. There was a big like first half and second half of this record because we were under Warner Brothers for like the first year, and then you're trying to do the label game where you're trying to like pass things through your A&R guy, and like you're trying to get the checkpoint of like, how about this song, mm-hmm. and like get it through the label. And then a year into it, like we're jumping through those hoops and they drop us. So we're just like, we've been trying to filter everything through them, and now we're on our own. And so it was kind of like we almost wrote 2 records. Mm-hmm. Wow. There was like the Warner Brothers year, and then there was a couple years of, okay, we have no one to answer to now. We're just going to do what we want to do. Yeah. And so we took our time with it, obviously. I know the fans noticed, but
yeah, we just, I mean, put it in perspective, at least from my point of view. Odd Soul came out when I was a freshman in college, and I waited until after I graduated from college for the new one.
Yeah, that does sound like a long time.
Yeah, but there's a backstory to it. I mean, we're finding out now there's a reason for it.
Yeah, the label thing was a mess, and it really jammed things up. Because it even took a while to get like officially dropped. Like we were scared to like release a record while we didn't have the papers. Mm-hmm.
In limbo.
Because we didn't want them claiming anything that we had worked on under their umbrella. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So there was a weird time in there where we were just kind of waiting, and once we got the final like release, then we felt free to like just start cranking stuff out. Yeah. So the majority, that first thing was all in New Orleans. The first half, we rented a house on Oak Street in New Orleans. And this whole second half was at Darren's, partly at his house in Tyler, Texas, and then partly in a basement of a print shop that he ended up making a studio in the bottom of a print shop.
Awesome.
It was like a huge metal door that used to be fur storage. It was called like Fishman's Fur Storage. So whenever we go down the steps, we have to like crank this huge vault door open.
Whoa.
Go into our little studio and then crank the door shut again, which it definitely helps for like sound isolation. But
that's awesome. Would you say there's a particular song or just a memory from this record that just really stands out to you? Could even be the day recording, just one instance that really just kind of stuck out.
There would be a couple, I guess. We jammed on Light Up for hours, trying to find like different vibes for how that song was going to go. And I have vivid memories of just sitting on synth bass, like trying different things. Everyone was trying different things. And I mean, I have memories of long jams. I have memories of Darren in this drum closet, room within a room, drum closet that he built. Barely enough room for the kit. And there's no doorknob on the door. So I would like do little Snapchat, like little vines through the doorknob of him just like eyes closed, just like sweating in this tiny room with no AC, and just like He's one of the only drummers where I feel like I could listen to him with no reference, no other music reference, like no headphones on. Like I can just listen to him and be entertained.
Yeah, you don't have to hear it in context with the song.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just like, man, this song's gonna be great.
Yeah.
I don't even know what's going on.
I've joked that with my friends before. Like, if I went to a Mutemath show and it was just Darren drumming for an hour, I'd be happy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know if I have any awesome stories for you. I remember working on Romaine, and it's
Great
such
song.
a beautiful song. I remember getting emotional working on that and getting really excited. And the lyrics, we had a little battle over the timing of the lyrics of the bridge, where it's just keep fighting, just keep trying. Yeah. I remember having a debate about the timing of the lyrics, because Darren wrote that song, which blew me away. And his timing of those bridge lyrics was a little different than what we ended up using, because the rest of us, we had already gotten to this place of like, oh, this, like the way that they're on the record is what all three of us were like, oh, that's so powerful. Like, it's just like the cadence is kind of on the offbeat. So, just keep fighting, just keep. And Darren had shifted everything in his mind the way he wrote it. It was a little bit earlier. It's hard to describe, but it's funny how just a little timing change, and you have a big debate over that. But I just remember a lot of fond memories of just sitting around jamming. We have a tendency to all like eventually be crowded around one keyboard and like all be turning knobs. All of us be turning knobs. So like whatever, like Paul would be playing the line on the keyboard, and then me and Darren, like I'm on the pitch shifter and like some other knob, and Darren's working the filter. Just fun memories of that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
Oh, that is fun. Sounds awesome.
Cool.
So, okay, so you talked a little bit about this, but I want to dig just a tad deeper if we can. When you're working on a song and you're trying to work out a part, you're trying to find the right sound or the right texture. How you thinking about that? Are you thinking like in terms of like the end result of like how is this going to hit the listener when they hear it? How's it going to make them feel? Is it going to stick out to them, or is it just going to blend in and they're not really going to notice it? Or do you not think about that at all, and you just think about what you're listening for, what you're trying to put into it, kind of like just how it hits you? Are you thinking about it in that greater context, or are you just in the moment?
Yeah, I try to stay in the moment. I think Paul is probably the most mindful of like, how's this gonna hit a crowd? I tend to be very narrow-minded in that situation, and I'm actually I struggle a little bit with like what I think the final sound should be, or like the type of instrument that should even be playing that. When I think of parts, like I actually tend to strictly be thinking about how this melody or harmony or counter melody plays against the chord structure or the melody. So I'm thinking very like linear, like the way this interacts is so cool in my mind. Let's try this. And I would pitch a couple ideas, or sometimes pitch an idea to the guys that would be like, how about this line over this melody? But I would just play it on like a dry guitar tone that was just like just a crappy dry guitar tone.
You can say whatever you want here.
Oh yeah, it's a podcast, right?
It's a podcast. You can say whatever you want.
A very shitty guitar tone.
Yeah, you can say shit. Say it.
I would just demo the idea, and sometimes they would struggle to feel the same way about it until I would like dial up a good tone and present it in context of like,
I understand that,
with some reverb, or But that's something that I always struggle with. Like I have an idea and I want to get that melody down. So like just get it down on any instrument, and then I'll worry about like cool tone later.
So you think in terms of like, let's just get the bare bones idea to begin with, and then we can start worrying about dressing it up as we go.
Yeah, because I always worry about capturing that moment.
Yeah.
Because there's so many times where you have something when you're walking on the street.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, oh, that would be great. And if you don't make a little voice memo of it or like write a note.
Oh, yeah, it's gone.
By the time you get back home, you're just like.
It's over.
No idea
what
I thought of. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Absolutely. So how about, what about like creative blocks? You ever run into creative blocks or you feel like you're hitting a brick wall when you're trying to write parts or when you're working on vitals too? That happens.
All the time, man. It sucks.
What's your method or what's your mindset or your approach for overcoming those times?
I don't have a proven method. It's usually just perseverance. I am certainly like an advocate of taking breaks though, and like going to do. I'm just gonna go play disc golf for an hour, and like maybe I'll think of it when I'm on hole 9, you know, or maybe when you come back on fresh ears, it's all of a sudden it's really obvious. But when it's a writer's block for like days, that at that point it's just usually just perseverance and like trial and error of I'm not inspired at all, but I'm just going to like scroll through these presets until I find a keyboard sound that I think would be nice. And it can, there's little tricks that can help, jump to a different track, like come back to it later. Try and run something through an amp that you've never done before, or put a pedal on a keyboard. There's technological tricks that you can try and manufacture an inspiration out of.
Yeah.
But
trick your ears a little bit, so to speak, because maybe they got used to hearing something too many times, and
it seems like
exactly. There can be little tricks like that. But writer's block in general is something I've struggled with for years, and it's usually just, for me, it's just forcing myself to work despite, like, I don't feel like writing at all today. I don't feel like writing this week. But life is short.
Yeah.
And that's what I do for a living. So I'm going to go out. I'm going to go out and I'm at least going to try and write, even if I don't like what I end up with. I'm going to go try and work for a few hours, Yeah. And see if anything happens.
There's a great book out there about this very thing. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
And, I think I've heard about that.
Yeah, it's pretty popular, but it speaks directly to what you just said, basically, is like, whether I feel it or not, like, this is what I got to do. And he talks about your biggest enemy being what he calls resistance, and that's like always that thing that's pushing up against you, and like, so yeah, I'd definitely recommend that book.
I gotta read that too.
Yeah, and especially
to anybody who's listening, it's just a great read.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna jot that down here, but especially if and when you work from home, like, that's the easiest situation to just get distracted to where you could distract yourself forever because you've got like stuff that needs to be fixed on the house. You need to do your yard work. You need to organize your house. Like, you need to take care, like make dinner. Like, it's so easy to like feel like you're being productive, even though you didn't actually work on music at all that day.
Yeah. You can get into all that little busy work, and then by the end of the day, you didn't really touch the music.
Nothing to show for it. Yeah. So the best way that I've gotten around that, or I kind of lucked out, was when I moved to Nashville, I turned my garage into a studio. And even though it's connected to the house, like when I go out of the house door and I take the 5 steps into the garage door, like, even though it's 5 steps, there's a little bit of a switch in my head that's like, okay, this is work. Like, I'm going in here to create. And that's even a huge help over my last house when it was just in a bedroom. And so it was just a lot easier to get distracted or pulled into some just BS with the house that you wanted to get done. And there was one other thing I was going to say about that. Shoot, I lost it. I am going to check out that book though, because I could use some knowledge.
Yeah. It's written in just like this really, it's not like other books. It's written in like this really just kind of to the point abruptness. The pages are short. You go through them really quick. It's a kick in the pants, that's for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. So why don't you take 16?
Sure. If you were working on a record like Vitals that was really involved, and you knew that not very many people were going to hear it, would you still put the same level of heart and passion into making it if you knew it was just something that maybe a couple hundred people are going to hear, or a few 100,000 people are going to hear? Does that kind of change your what you put into it, would you say?
Well, personally, yes. I would hope anyone in that position would answer yes. I know it can be discouraging when you think you have a very limited audience of your family and like your 10 friends.
Yeah.
And that's tough. But I think the biggest solution to that is wanting to surprise yourself or, impress yourself. Like if you can make a song and you finish it and you feel impressed by what you did, like just in your own mind, in your own satisfaction, like that's one of the biggest victories to me.
Absolutely. Because
you know your limitations, and if you pushed some boundaries when you made that track. And I mean, that's one of the biggest things to me. And so I guess I can be a little bit of a testament to why you shouldn't just phone it in, is just because a lot of what I worked on is what got me this gig. The solo stuff that Darren saw me play at those local shows, and the other band that I was in that he came to was called Cornbelt Chorus. A lot of what I was working on was a very limited audience. It was just my family and friends. I would throw it online and try and generate some feedback, like on this. You remember the 61? That was a website that was kind of cool for music for a while. MySpace comments, whatever. You would try and get some feedback. You have no idea. Like it's so hard to gauge. Like, is this song legit, or am I just excited because I made a song and finished it? But the testament, at least from my life, is it scored me a sweet gig.
Yeah.
So I and that's not always going to be the case. I mean, people that make music, it's not always going to get heard by more than 10 people. But there has to be that internal satisfaction. Because you're going to fuel you. Yeah, you're going to get writer's block, and that's the best way to get through it, is to stretch your mind, stretch your brain, try and come up with a part that you are excited about, Yeah. And usually I think that excitement often comes through in a track.
Yeah, and that's what keeps you going.
Totally.
Those types of moments and those. All right, so this is going to be the last question, and we'll wrap it up because we want to be respectful of your time. We've been going a little while now. So
cool, man.
What would you say, in terms of your artistic accomplishments, which one are you most proud of, and why?
It's a good question. Yeah. It's hard for me to. I'm not the kind of guy that ever chooses one definitive answer. Sorry.
It doesn't have to be just one. I mean, the answer is the answer.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some stuff that's kind of tied up there for the top. I mean, I'm really proud of my solo project. I don't think I have the best voice for like a lead singer, but I kind of pushed through that anyway and still made a good batch of songs that I'm proud of, and played all the instruments. And to me, that was a really satisfying
That's a big deal.
Use of creativity, yeah. And so that's one of my favorite things. You know, being on the Vitals record is a huge personal like feather in my cap that I feel. You know, that was my first album on like a mass scale, so that was a pretty big deal to me. To you know, just to my artistic catalog. You know.
Oh yeah.
And actually, this remix that we just stuff that we did, I did one track by myself. And I was really happy with how that came out. It's just a remix, I dig it. But it was still I've never done a remix before, so it was a big stretch for me. So I was very happy with that.
That's if you've never done it before, to undertake something like that, that's a creative challenge.
Yeah. It was kicking my ass for weeks trying to just find a cool concept, you know? So that was a testament to writer's block and just persevering through it. We were working on that record on the road, which is twice as hard, just because you're in a different setting every day. But yeah, I would say those are probably the top three. That Southern rock band that I mentioned called the Cornbelt Chorus. I'm really proud of our full length that we did. That was a nice accomplishment too.
Nice. And if people wanted to find out more about this kind of stuff, where would they go? So the Mutemath stuff, that's all online. If they just look up Mutemath, right? Mutemath.com.
Yeah. It's all
on the major social channels.
Google. It's all on Google.
Yeah.
Gummerman is my solo project. The Cornbelt Chorus is that Southern rock local band that we did that's really got some great stuff on it. I would encourage people to check that out. And I'm producing this girl named Ellie Schmidley right now. Just got a beautiful voice, kind of sultry, thick, like somewhere around Feist, arena, but her idol is kind of like Julie Andrews, like Sound of Music. So there's a lot of classic in her voice.
Yeah.
So we've been working on some stuff that people can check out. At least one track right now. There's one called Sister. Sister. And she's just got a great voice. I would encourage people to check that out too.
And her name again was Julie.
It's Ellie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Julie Andrews was the
inspiration. No, that's right. Yeah, Ellie Schmidley.
Ellie Schmidley. So you can check her out. Todd's solo work is under Gummerman. He was in a band Cornbelt Chorus, and then Mutemath, obviously, which everyone should know. But if you don't know Mutemath, oh my gosh, like go check it out.
Waiting for
right now. Don't wait another moment. Todd, I just want to say thanks for your time today and for coming on our show and talking about your life as an artist and all the music you've been a part of.
That's my pleasure, man.
Dude, I'm super stoked. It was really enjoyable for me. I hope you got something out of it too.
Yeah. I appreciate talking to the people. I need to check out your podcast.
Yeah. This is going to be out pretty soon. I'm going to be having it out this month, and I've got some episodes that I've recorded, and I'm still editing and putting stuff together. So I'm going to be dripping them out kind of like on an every other week basis to start with. And if it picks up from there, if there's more demand, then we'll pick it up. But yeah. I'm just curious, what's your favorite like musical related podcast? I don't do that very often, but I probably should. I know I heard like the Song Exploder for one or two songs that I thought I've heard really, a little bit of that really one. Cool. I'd have to look at my podcast list. Yeah, he did like a. I saw one. I discovered it because he did one with Tycho, and I really like Tycho. Oh yeah, I think he did one with maybe the Death Cab guy that did the music side, or not Death Cab, the Postal Service guy that made the music. Ben Gibbard. And that was great. He did one other one that was really cool. I can't remember. There's a guy called. Shoot, I don't know, but his podcast is really cool. I was just curious if you had any favorites. Ironically, I don't listen to a ton of music podcasts.
I don't either. I should
mostly
start.
ones that are like kind of about art. People who are like musicians, but it's not like specifically about music. Like,
oh yeah, that's cool.
Like Stephen Christian, former lead singer of Anberlin, like he had a podcast where he was kind of talking a lot of stuff that we talked today, but it's not like he's like playing songs and breaking it down like that. And a guy named Matt Carter has a show called Break It Down where he does some part of the time he's talking to musicians and they're breaking stuff down like that, and other times it's science and tech. And so those are a couple that I like, but they're not specifically like music per se. But I should go find some more.
Yeah, I've been stuck on a very small cluster of podcasts, which
Same here.
It's basically Bill Burr, and which is the Monday Morning Podcast, and Car Talk. Like that's been like all I listen to, really.
Yeah.
I've gone through other phases too, but
yeah, a lot of my podcasts are actually, it's like it's either something arts related or it's about politics. So that's me personally. But
you know who's really well rounded is the Let's Make It Weird with Pete Holmes.
Yeah, I've heard him before. I've never looked up at his show, but I've heard him on other shows as a guest, and he's really interesting.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard much of his stand-up or like anything else. I've just heard a lot of his podcast episodes, and he's a great interviewer and he blends the arts and always works in like whatever people think about religion. And he keeps a really well-rounded interview. You should check it out. There's a lot of like famous people on there that it's fun to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, he's in LA, so he's got access to all the people.
Yeah, true.
Check that one out.
Yeah, I've heard him before. Yeah, right on, man. Well, we won't keep you any longer. We just want to say thanks again.
Thank you, Todd.
Encourage all the people to look up all the stuff and just gobble it up because it's really good stuff. So
yeah, great talking to you, man. And Mutemath is playing in New Orleans in a few weeks. If anyone hears this podcast, I think we're doing Voodoo Fest.
Right on.
Sweet. And I think we're coming back to Nashville right after that to play Nashville. So keep
Next time you guys are on tour and you run through Chicago, I'll definitely try to make it out.
Me too.
Because these days I'm more around there. So
yeah, man.
All right,
Love
man.
it.
Hopefully we can have you back in the future. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, good to see you, man.
All right. Take care, man.
Take care.
All right. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, you too.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Who's listening to this show right now? I bet there's a good chance you aren't following us on social media. Let's fix that. Look up Every Last Drop Podcast on Facebook and like our page. Find us on Twitter @ELD Podcast. And find us on Instagram under the same name, @ELD Podcast. So won't you do me a kindness and follow us? Do it now!
That was Todd Gummerman, everyone.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
That was fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming on this show. I had fun. Did you have fun?
I had a lot of fun. Cool guy.
Oh, for sure. Very down to earth and humble and approachable and interesting.
Yeah. You showed me the band Mutemath. What was it, like 5 years ago? Maybe more.
More than
Could
that.
be more.
It seems like I hit.
Yeah.
I've been listening to Mutemath for a long, long time. Basically since I was I think 7th grade was the year that I like got into them, and what was I, like 12 or 13 years old?
Something like that. You saw them live. What was it, 4 or 5 years ago?
Let's see. I think I was 19 years old, maybe.
Yeah.
So, 4 or 5 years ago.
Nice.
First time I saw them live.
Cool.
House of Blues, Chicago. They were on their Odd Soul tour. So yeah, it had to be when I was 18 or 19 years old. 19, I think.
Yeah.
And basically, that was a really interesting interview because it was almost kind of surreal in a way. Not totally, because and I don't mean this as I'm not dissing Todd. I love Todd, but Todd's not a founding member of the band.
Right.
So just being honest, you don't get the same wow effect, I guess, as if you were like talking to the guy who started it. So, but again, I don't mean that to diss Todd. Like, he's just as much Mutemath as any of the other guys are now. He's a member. So, but I think I'm at a point now where I'm a little bit older. I mean, I'm not really that old, but if I would have done this, say, 3 years ago, I would have totally been freaking out and like probably not even been able to keep my composure. I am talking
quite
to
starstruck.
Exactly. I am talking to a member of my favorite band.
Yeah.
I can't even hold myself together. And now I think I've matured enough to where I can see them as just, they're just as much of just a regular guy. Like they're just as human as me.
It helps when they're kind and humble and down, down to earth people, like Todd.
It makes you feel like it's a friend-to-friend conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, that was great. Mutemath's been my favorite band for a long, long time, for a decade, pretty much. And, this is a fulfillment of a dream in a way.
Absolutely.
So this is a milestone for me. You know, this is a big deal for me, guys.
Yeah.
I met Todd through a friend of mine has a cab company, but he also does some amps and stuff. So any musicians out there, look up janiscabs.com. I was through about a year in college or so. I was kind of sort of interning for him on the side. And I contacted Mutemath to see if they were interested in the products. And Todd is the one who wrote back to me, and we met with them at a show in Indianapolis. And I just kind of kept Todd's contact info and texted him here and there. And that led to, I guess we're not like super friends or anything, but we're acquaintances. And believe me, it's almost like I was saying before. It's almost kind of surreal to me just to even be on acquaintance terms with a guy who's in my favorite band ever.
Yeah.
Let alone, I hope we can, like be friends someday. And if he ever comes through the area, like invite him to disc golf or something because he's into that, or
invite him to a bonfire.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like he'd be down to hang.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Todd, you want to come hang out, have a fire, have some beers?
Yeah.
I think he'd be like, if he had the time.
If you're listening to this right now, Todd, we are inviting you over. We're going to go bowling next week, so come with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hitting up the bowling alley. We'll buy a pitcher.
Yeah. We'll have a good old time at Inman's.
That's right. So, yeah. So,
cool.
I don't know what else to say about that. Except I think that interview just speaks for itself, doesn't it?
It does. So he's a man of many, many talents.
He is like even more diverse in his experiences and skill set than I thought he was. Yeah. And I knew he was in multi-instrumentalist going into this, but I didn't know all that background history of like how he could start with violin. I don't know if he does violin now, but like just the fact he started on that.
Yeah.
And how like he's just been on all these kinds of different instruments like just since the beginning of his life, basically.
The transition from classical to more rock.
To rock and grungy kind of rock, and
it's very fascinating.
It is. It's kind of unusual in a way, but hey,
Yeah.
We all end up in places that we didn't think we would be.
That's for sure. That is for sure, bro.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd be a whip maker 10 years ago. I had no clue.
Yeah.
I
didn't think I'd be selling jewelry for a living, but hey, what do you know?
What you gonna do about that,
Yeah. On that note, let's transition to picks.
All right.
Quick refresher for all you newbies out there. If you're tuning in for the first time, if you're a Mutemath fan who found this and you don't know who in the heck we are, each week we sit down and we talk to somebody who's well, not each week, but every so often we sit down and we talk to an artist of any kind of art medium and talk to them about their art and why they do it. And then we talk about our picks, which is what we're into for the week. Any piece of art that we've consumed during the week that we just are really digging and really
want to share it with
loving
you.
and
Yeah.
encourage you to check out for yourself.
Mhm.
So here we go on that note.
Picks.
Right. It's our picks.
Oh,
My bad.
yeah. So I would have to say my pick of the week would have to be these videos on YouTube that I've been watching. I've been watching these videos on carpentry, woodworking. I'm not very good at woodworking. My father is pretty good at it. He's made tables and chairs. Actually, this desk we're actually sitting at right now. My
Not
dad
that
made
you
this
guys can
table.
see it, but trust me. Believe me.
It's good.
It's huge.
yeah.
It is.
It is. It really is huge.
It actually is for a table.
Yeah. But I've been watching these woodworking videos of these guys. Anything from, wood carving to just guys making tables and stuff. And they're very relaxing to watch. And it's just something about them. I can't name one off the top of my head, a YouTube channel, but it's just something. It's the satisfaction from watching these videos. I guess as a craftsman myself, who appreciates these things, as a photographer, as a whip maker, I find these videos to be somewhat soothing.
I find that interesting. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I wasn't expecting it. But you're always into something that's... This one isn't... I wouldn't say it's quite like out there. Like woodworking is not an unusual hobby or even profession. Mm-hmm. Not that everybody knows how to do it, but it's not like this way out in left field. Like when you tell people you're a whip maker, people go, "What? Wait, what? What's that? What do you mean you make whips?"
Yeah.
But when you say, "Oh, I'm a woodworker," or I make cabinets, or I make tables, or furniture, wood and stuff like that, people go, "Oh, okay, I understand that." But I didn't know you were interested in it.
I am, yeah. Any craftsmanship
where people are making stuff
yeah.
from scratch.
I just have this appreciation for it. Whether or not I've done it, whether or not I'm good at it, or if I've even tried it in my life. I watch.
Does it count as appreciation if you enjoy the usefulness of the end result? Like this table. I appreciate it because it's such a great table that's spacious and sturdy.
Yeah.
And does that count as appreciating it?
I mean, in some ways, yes. But I think there's a whole nother kind of... I feel like there's some people that can't just sit through a 20-minute video of a guy doing step-by-step making a table or whatever. And that's fine. If that's not your thing, that's cool. But I feel like there's kind of a whole nother just appreciation for it. Like it's satisfying to watch this being made, and you appreciate the guy's skills, the guy who's making it. And I don't know. I just feel like that's the way I see it.
No, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. You'll have to send me the video.
I will. There's a few of them that I've saved, and then I'll be able to... I'd give these guys a shout-out, but I can't think of their YouTube channels, unfortunately.
Bummer. It'll be on the website, though.
Yes, it will.
No worries.
Yes, it
so
will.
you're saved.
As a matter of fact, it's there right now.
Yeah, because if you go to everylastdroppodcast.com/picks, you'll see it, okay? On the Todd Gummerman episode.
Go get it.
All right, my pick. If you remember one of our previous episodes, Nick mentioned his pick, Andy Timmons' new album, Theme from a Perfect World. And then we said, which, by the way, is relevant timing because we're going to see him. So my pick for the week is seeing Andy Timmons play live.
Man, that's a good one.
So what can I say? The show left me almost speechless, okay? I didn't know what to say. I just reacted to it in such a way where I was like, okay, everything that could possibly be done on a guitar was just done. You know what I mean? Like,
I do.
I was like, I mean, the only words I had were basically like, wow, and that was incredible. Wow. That's pretty much my reaction to it. And we got to meet him afterwards. There was a long line of people that wanted to talk to him, so it was a very brief meeting, but at least we got to talk to him and introduce ourselves. And by the way, guys, this is gonna be a candid moment here. We interviewed Andy Timmons on this show, and we had audio problems, so the interview was not captured. His audio was not captured, so it's not going to happen, really. It's not going to be released, and unfortunately, you guys aren't going to get to hear it because I messed it up. But it happened to us, and we still remember the conversation. So
on the bright side, he remembered us.
He remembered us. He said, "Yeah, that was a fun
conversation.
hang."
That was fun.
That's what he said. He said that was a fun hang.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the best moment of the show for me. So the best moment of my pick this week was when he played Electric Gypsy, which is kind of Andy Timmons' signature song, I guess, or he's most played. I'll say most played Andy Timmons song.
Yeah,
is Electric Gypsy, and there was a moment where he kind of brought it down and improvised, and he just played such a moving piece of music, and in those moments, I actually started to cry.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. I started to cry.
Good.
It was so moving.
That's good. That's a good thing.
So,
and guess what? If you liked, Danny, I meant to tell you this. If you liked that live version, that's your favorite version ever, right? Of Electric Gypsy.
For sure.
Someone actually recorded it and put it on YouTube. They had a high quality microphone that they must have plugged into their phone because the audio was superb.
From the same show?
The same show at Reggie's. It's on YouTube. I looked it up 3-4 hours ago. Somebody recorded about 4 or 5 songs, and Electric Gypsy's on there.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so go back, check it out. It's in the link right now. That video of Andy Timmons playing Electric Gypsy. So check it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you have it, folks. There you have it. Okay, those are our picks. All right, the woodworking video and the Andy Timmons show.
Check those out, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in your dial on your AM radio. Not. Thanks for pulling out your phone or your computer and tuning into our podcast. We're going to be bringing you a sweet episode next time, all right?
Next time, guys.
Right. Next time.
See you later.